When a franchise that just climbed to the top of the mountain decides to open its doors to a rookie with almost no experience in the NBA, the easy reaction is to dismiss it as a minor move, a footnote in the headlines. But the Boston Celtics rarely operate on the surface. Every step, every transaction carries echoes of a deeper vision. And this latest decision, the signing of Amari Williams to a two-way contract, is one of those moments that could look small today but might one day be seen as the beginning of something far more significant. Williams is not arriving as a traditional prospect. At 23 years old, his path to Boston has already carried layers of unusual twists. Born in the United Kingdom, raised in a culture that does not produce waves of basketball stars, he fought through years of being overlooked before turning himself into one of the most intimidating defensive presences in the college game. 3 times he was named Defensive Player of the Year in the Colonial Athletic Association, an honor that requires more than highlight blocks. It demands discipline, timing, and an instinct that cannot be taught. The Celtics front office did not simply stumble into him. On draft night, they maneuvered with Orlando, sending away the 32nd pick and securing not only Williams but also additional assets that stretch into future seasons. That trade was not about maximizing immediate impact, it was about planting seeds. Brad Stevens and his staff knew that losing Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta and Luke Kornet to San Antonio while watching Al Horford step away meant the roster was going to need a very different defensive backbone. Signing a player with a frame of 2 meters and 8 centimeters was not about filling a gap. It was about reshaping the architecture of the team for years to come. The numbers from his season at Kentucky only scratched the surface. Nearly 11 points per game, more than 8 rebounds, over 3 assists, a field goal percentage above 56. Those statistics reveal a player who did far more than protect the rim. He moved the ball, understood spacing, adapted to a higher level of competition without losing efficiency. That matters because the Celtics are not searching for a specialist. They are searching for complementary weapons that can be developed in the shadows of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. We'll look at his summer league averages, modest at best, and write him off. But the Celtics have never used summer league as a final verdict. They see it as a laboratory, a place where mistakes are not punished but studied. Williams logging 17 minutes per game in Las Vegas was not about winning games in July. It was about exposing him to NBA speed, NBA spacing, and the NBA rhythm that no college program can replicate. What Boston witnessed was not the stat sheet, it was the way he adjusted after each possession, the way he communicated on defense, the way he absorbed coaching in real time. The more you dig into his story, the more you realize how unusual this signing really is. Few players from Drexel University ever make headlines on the professional stage. Williams did not have the platform of Duke or Kansas, yet he built his reputation through resilience. When he transferred to Kentucky for the 2024-2025 season, he was not guaranteed minutes, yet he turned himself into a reliable anchor in the toughest conference in college basketball. That willingness to take the hard road is exactly the mentality Boston prizes. Consider what it means for a player with that background to now enter the Celtics system. He will spend time in Maine, working within the development program that has quietly become one of the most effective in the league. Boston has transformed multiple players through patience, structure, and relentless coaching. The idea is not that Williams will suddenly become a star. The idea is that he can grow into a piece that fits perfectly into a machine that is already humming at championship level. And there is a larger symbolism here. When you lose veterans like Porzingis, Kornet, and Horford, you do not simply replace their numbers, you search for ways to evolve. Porzingis brought scoring, Kornet provided reliability, Horford carried leadership and experience. Williams will not replicate them, but he represents something else, a bridge to a new era of big men in Boston, one defined by athleticism, defensive instincts, and the ability to run with pace. Think about the timing. The Celtics have just defended their crown. The pressure to repeat is immense, and yet they still choose to invest in a project. That is a message to fans, to the league, to rivals. Boston is not satisfied with being champions once. They are constructing layers. They are preparing for seasons beyond 2025 and 2026. Seasons where fresh legs, new energy, and unexpected contributors will matter just as much as the established stars. For Celtics fans, the name Amari Williams may not yet resonate like Tatum or Brown. The story is just beginning. If, in 2 or 3 years, he becomes the surprise piece that allows Boston to stay ahead of the curve. But if his development frees the coaching staff to experiment with lineups no other team can handle, What if the decision made in August of 2025 becomes the spark for another era of dominance? That is the curiosity gap that makes this signing so fascinating. It is not about what Williams is today, it is about what he could become tomorrow, and how the Celtics might once again turn a move that looked quiet on the outside into a thunderclap heard across the league. The Boston Celtics are once again standing at a crossroads that could define the next decade of their legacy. Every great dynasty in sports is tested not only by victories, but by the moments when the foundation seems to shake. This summer has been one of those moments. What began as a simple offseason has turned into a story of reinvention, of risk, and of quiet moves that may one day be remembered as turning points. The headline is simple enough. Boston secured a young center through a critical draft pick, but the real story lies beneath the surface. Because what the Celtics did in June of 2025 may prove to be more than a transaction. It may be the spark that keeps a championship window open. When so many thought it was closing, Boston was forced to let go of pieces that many believed were untouchable. Kristaps Porzingis was traded away. Drew Holiday, who had been a vital defensive anchor, is gone as well. Luke Kornet moved on. Al Horford, the heartbeat of multiple Celtics eras, is still a free agent with little sign of return. For any other team, this could have been a death sentence. But Boston has never been just any team. Losing names is not the same as losing identity, and the Celtics have built theirs on resilience, adaptability, and vision. Fans may wonder what is left in the front court, but what if the real question is, who is about to rise? Enter Amari Williams, a name that casual observers may dismiss as just another second-round project. But history has taught us that Boston's second-rounders have often carried weight far beyond their draft slot. Williams, selected 46th overall after a draft night deal, brings more than just height. He brings unpredictability. He brings an untold story waiting to be written in green and white. Born in England, developed at Drexel before moving to Kentucky, Williams embodies the unusual path that often creates players with a different hunger. He is not polished, but sometimes greatness is not about being polished at the start. It is about being relentless in the climb. His numbers with the Wildcats tell part of the story. Double-digit scoring, near 9 rebounds a night. Passing instincts rare for a big man, and a shooting percentage over 56. But numbers rarely capture the essence of potential. The Celtics front office did not see a finished product. They saw a canvas. A 7-footer with agility, strength, vision, and time on his side. Boston gave him a two-way contract, and while that may seem minor, it reveals something deeper. They are planting a seed, one that could grow at the very moment the team needs it most. The context makes this move even more fascinating. Jayson Tatum, the franchise cornerstone, will be out for the entire 2025 to 2026 season as he recovers from a torn Achilles. This would be devastating news for almost any contender, yet for Boston, it has created a strange paradox. Without their superstar, they must adapt. They must discover hidden strengths. They must explore options they would never otherwise consider. And it is in seasons like this where unexpected heroes emerge. Neemias Queta is currently projected as the starting center, and he too has shown flashes that make Boston hopeful. The team has added Luka Garza and Chris Boucher to reinforce the paint, but none of these names guarantee stability, which is precisely why Williams may matter sooner than expected. Depth in the NBA is not simply about survival, it is about experimentation. A front office that dares to look beyond immediate certainty often discovers pieces that others overlook. Consider this. Every championship core in Boston's past was formed not only by obvious stars, but by players who rose in moments of need. Nobody predicted the exact trajectory of players like Robert Parrish or Rajon Rondo before they became vital pillars. What if Williams, with his unorthodox journey and underdog status, is positioned to follow a similar script? The Celtics have a history of crafting unlikely stories into defining chapters, and that history is not coincidence, it is vision. Financial constraints pushed the franchise into uncomfortable decisions, trading veterans and reshaping the roster. But hidden inside those tough calls is freedom, cap flexibility, developmental opportunities, and a chance to shift from stability into discovery. Boston's front office has long thrived in such conditions, using adversity as leverage to uncover value where others see weakness. Fans may look at the coming season and see a bridge year, a pause, a waiting game until Tatum returns. But what if it becomes something far more intriguing? What if this is the season where Jaylen Brown evolves into a true solo leader, where Derek White takes another leap, where Payton Pritchard solidifies himself as more than a spark plug, and where an unknown big man drafted in the middle of the second round begins carving his place. These are the scenarios that keep the Celtics relevant when other franchises would fall into irrelevance. The Celtics championship in 2024 was proof that their blueprint works, but every championship team must evolve. The draft pick of Amari Williams is not about immediate dominance, it is about sustaining a cycle. A cycle where new energy is constantly fed into a core that refuses to crumble. In a league that often rewards short-term thinking, Boston has, once again, invested in the long view. So, as the season approaches, the real story may not be the players who left, but the players who now have the stage. Amari Williams may not play 30 minutes a night immediately, but he represents something bigger. He represents Boston's refusal to let circumstances dictate destiny. He represents the gamble that tomorrow's championship team is already being built in the shadows of today's uncertainty, and that, for Celtics fans, should not only inspire hope, it should ignite curiosity. Because the question is no longer what Boston lost, the question is who Boston just discovered. The Boston Celtics are once again standing at the edge of a decision that could reshape not only their roster, but also the long-term identity of the franchise. What looked like a summer meant for small adjustments has become a crossroads of strategy and vision. With Jayson Tatum sidelined for what could be the entire upcoming season due to a torn Achilles tendon, the organization is forced to rethink its balance of star power, financial maneuvering, and depth. The exit of J.R.O. Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Luke Kornet, and eventually Al Horford already created a new reality. But the real intrigue now lies with a player who has quietly become one of the most important weapons in Boston's arsenal. That player is Sam Hauser. At first glance, the idea of moving on from Hauser might shock many. A forward who was once undrafted, he evolved into one of the most reliable three-point shooters in the entire league. Since entering the NBA in the year 2021, he has hit more than 42% of his attempts from deep, a mark that puts him alongside the most accurate long-range shooters of the modern era. Numbers alone cannot tell the full story, because his ability to stretch defenses has changed the geometry of the court every time he steps on it. When he is on the floor, defenders are forced to make impossible choices, and that space has been a hidden engine behind Boston's offensive efficiency. That is exactly why the possibility of his departure is so intriguing. Reports suggest that financial flexibility may drive this conversation. With Tatum's Supermax contract already active and Jaylen Brown's historic extension valued at more than $300 million, Boston faces the luxury tax challenges that come with being a perennial contender. Hauser, still on a manageable deal, suddenly becomes a rare trade asset. Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated pointed out in an interview with NBC Sports, Boston, that Hauser represents one of the easiest pathways for the team to acquire a starting caliber piece if they choose to explore the market. The reasoning is simple. He is affordable, he is proven, and in a league where floor spacing is a currency, he is extremely marketable. But the question that raises curiosity is not simply whether Boston can afford to trade Hauser, it is what message such a move would send about their long-term vision. Would dealing away one of the best shooters in the league mean the Celtics are aiming for a defensive-heavy identity while Tatum recovers, or would it indicate a plan to bring in another dynamic scorer to bridge the gap until their superstar returns? Every scenario carries risk, yet every scenario also carries hope. By selling high on Hauser, the front office could potentially unlock opportunities to acquire a young, versatile forward, or even draft assets that keep the championship window extended well beyond the current core. What makes this story fascinating is the timing. In the year 2025, the Celtics are fresh off a championship, yet forced into an off-season of change that almost no one predicted. The team that was once considered untouchable has suddenly become fluid, flexible, and unpredictable. And in that environment, Hauser is not just a role player, he is a symbol of choice. Keep him, and Boston leans into the idea of continuity, shooting, and stability. Trade him, and the Celtics embrace transformation, betting that the future requires sacrifices today to achieve dominance tomorrow. Hauser's single quotes as value around the league is undeniable. He averaged 8.5 points per game last season, while shooting more than 41% from deep. And during the 2023 to 2024 campaign, he averaged 9 points per game. Coaches know exactly what he brings, and opposing teams fear his ability to swing momentum with just 2 or 3 quick threes. In an NBA where spacing is at the core of every offense, his role is not just important, it is essential. That is why Boston's willingness to even consider his name in trade discussions is such a powerful storyline. It raises questions about what other front offices might be willing to offer, and it challenges fans to wonder if the team is preparing for a quiet rebuild. Beneath the surface of their championship glow, the Celtics have always thrived when they were bold, and history shows that the greatest eras of the franchise often came after decisions that at first felt shocking. Trading Hauser would not be about losing a shooter, it would be about unlocking a chain of moves that could position Boston for another decade of dominance. For fans, the hope lies in the idea that whatever choice is made, it will not be short-sighted. Whether Hauser remains to continue drilling threes at TD Garden, or whether he becomes the key that unlocks the next superstar arrival, the Celtics are once again proving that their story is not written in comfort, but in risk, vision, and the pursuit of greatness.